So, welcome to Beauty of Colors podcast, Raphael. It's great to have you on the show.
Fantastic. It's great to be here.
So, Raphael, tell the listeners about you and what was the driving force of you being an advocate for mental health?
Absolutely. Well, the force behind this mission was my own mental health. I was struggling so deeply and at a point of rock bottom, absolute rock bottom at age 35, truly saying to myself, my goodness, do I want to be on this planet anymore? Really understanding what it feels like to try and reach for my soul or higher power and feel like there's nothing there, spiritually bankrupt. And so that became my mission, and um, walk and path into recovery. And along this process, began learning the Eckhart Tolle and Joe Dispenza and CBT and DBT, and started bringing on all of these different modalities of thinking and consciousness and self-development. And it became very clear that not only, could I help myself, but that I could also help others in the form of sponsees and different groups. But on a deeper level, that begging question of, gosh, this stuff is so fundamental and essential. How to practice mindfulness, how to breathe correctly, how to use tools like radical acceptance of everything as it is, or intention to have a vision, or how to flip a lens of gratitude on, I hate math homework too. I'm grateful I have a free education. Um, and that I wondered, how did I make it all the way through high school and college and no one laid this at my feet? No one taught us this stuff in class. And it was in that moment, like I could feel myself get hit in the heart so hard that it was clear to me, I think I found my life's purpose. I think I found my path. I think I found my point of my existence is to try and give these tools of consciousness to as many youth as possible, taught in a way that resonates with this youngest generation, so that when they get older, maybe they could avoid some of the rock bottom and struggle and tragedy and strife that I endured on my path here.
So, Raphael, why is mental health so important right now? We see all what's going on around us. Right now, the world is a little chaotic. Why is mental health so important?
Sure. I think two ways to look at it. The first is, well, this world as we see it in its chaotic state is really a reflection of how we feel on the inside. This is who we are as a people. We can't avoid it. We're looking at a mirror. This is who we are, and this is what we've become of things. But to take another look at it, there was a poll in October 2023, and it was Kaiser Family Foundation CNN that did a poll that found that 90% of Americans agree. Now, hold up. I don't know that you can get 90% of Americans to agree that the world is round. So, this poll found that 90% of Americans agree that we are currently in a mental health crisis. Not that we're going towards one, not that there may be one in the future, but we're in one right now. Well, here's what I find so astonishing about that statistic is the mental health crisis is three times invisible. It's a first time invisible because it's between our ears. If there was an epidemic of broken arms, we would look around and say, my goodness, there's tens of millions of people in broken arms. We've really got to do something about this broken arm thing. It's secondly invisible because let's say my daughter, who's 15, is struggling. She's not telling her friends. I'm not telling my neighbors. Heck, I'm not even telling my parents, her grandparents, because that's her privacy. So it's shielded in this space of privacy when we're really struggling with mental health. And thirdly, because so often when a person is struggling that deeply with their mental health, they don't have the words to articulate what it is they're going through. So a lot of times it sounds like, I'm fine, it's fine, because inside they're dying and they're like, where do I even begin? I can't even. I don't even know where to start. And yet, despite it being three times invisible, for 90% of Americans to feel like we're in a crisis, how does that stat bear out? To me, what that says is 9 out of 10 people answering that question are seeing it firsthand in their own lives, in their own families, in their own homes. And the challenge is The outside world might look different because everybody puts on a brave face. The outside world might look different because that's my daughter's privacy. I won't tell you about that. That's her own private. We don't talk about it, or we say, "Oh, I'm fine." But that stat is that stat, and I think it's the real canary in the coal mine of where we are as a society with our mental health, where these youth are, and we still don't fully comprehend the impact of what you know the pandemic did to their development. And if you think about, let's say, a 9-year-old who is going through the pandemic, sitting in the back seat of their car, listening to their parents speak like the sky is falling and when is the world going to end type of thing. Well, even though the parents find a rational resolution to it all, the kids still can't unhear what they heard when they're in a state of semi listening. That creates this feeling of when is the other shoe going to drop? You know, that phantom feeling on the inside where you're just like, something isn't wrong, but it doesn't feel quite right.
Mhm.
Well, I can't help but think that for a lot of people, and this is just one example of how maybe the pandemic is going to affect our youth that we don't quite totally understand yet. That feeling of when is the other shoe going to drop? We play it forward 15 years of that kid spending 8.5 hours a day on a screen playing, Grand Theft Auto and, shoot 'em up games. And now they're a 27-year-old. Okay, now that's a health situation that we're going to need to contend with in the tens of millions. Not to be in a doomsday perspective, because there's never been a time in human history where hope and intellectual contagions of positivity and growth can be spread like wildfire. They really can. If 8 million people can like this TikTok of a dancing dog, I sure like our chances of being able to spread tools of consciousness that are effective.
Wow. So how do you or the organization that you're with, how do you guys go ahead and helping the youth um, tackle mental health and helping the youth cope with mental health?
Sure. It's about teaching them tools. And part of the challenge, so when I was going through my mental health struggle, I was a professional patient, and I did pretty much every form of therapy I could find, including trauma therapy, EMDR, somatic, cognitive behavior therapy, dialectical, um, and then as well as 12-step program and all so many of different. And when the pandemic hit, I got together with the local heads of health organizations and talented therapists and priestesses and all around good people who are sharp and with it as leaders. And we said, what is the fundamental set of 7 tools that we could teach this next generation because they're going to need it? Now, we chose 7. Not only is it a sacred number, but we felt that's an amount to where a person doesn't have to try and memorize stuff. 7 of something, these kids, and it's borne out, these kids can totally, have this entire toolkit at their availability and not feel like it's a mentalized thing that they're trying to remember. It's more so, yeah, oh, here's my toolkit, right? And so there were a lot of great tools that didn't make it into the final 7. But we found with these 7 tools as an indispensable kit for dealing with life on life's terms, that there isn't a single thing that comes my way day in, day out that I can't resolve by one or a combination of these tools. And we call these tools the fundamental life tools. And this is how we're supporting the next generation of youth by this book, which is now published and available, that was co-written with the youth of our program. As well as we teach it here. We actually just had a 6-hour summer camp here that just ended 30 minutes ago.
Mm.
Um, and so, we have another 35 youth here, you know, um, learning about these tools in a way where not only are they hearing it from me, but they're hearing it from each other. And that's a powerful thing. It's one thing, if this mental health epidemic is almost like a iceberg and we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. Well, our Titanic can't help but hit that iceberg. I don't think we're in a position where we can avoid it. We're going to hit the iceberg. Okay, well then let's learn how to build life rafts. In fact, let's teach youth how to teach other youth how to build life rafts. And that's what we're doing, teaching these youth how to train each other in consciousness. And then they take these tools and now they're taking them off to where they're going to college this year. They're taking them back to their high school. They're taking to them the groups of friends. And I've received so many texts or outreaches from teens that I work with that say, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I didn't say this, but a couple weeks ago, my friend was really going through this, that, and the other. And I taught them some tools. And oh my gosh, it's changed everything for them." So, really taking a functional tools based approach is at the heart of this because many times we talk about our emotions, we talk about the things, we talk around the things, but there's something deeply utilitarian and satisfying to have tangible tools in my hands that I know works. And I know they work because I'm learning them from somebody who can testify to them like, oh, yeah, when I'm really struggling, I really practice radical acceptance that it is what it is. And everything in this universe is exactly as it's supposed to be. Thy will be done. And that sense of support um, is invaluable for a kid who's trying to make it through this crazy seeming world. If we as adults feel like this is crazy, I can't imagine
Mhm.
what a 12-year-old thinks about. And so many of them, there's a very real thing because so I work with hundreds of youth, I guess now thousands of youth, and oftentimes, particularly if I have an insightful and articulate teen, I'll say, what's something that you guys are thinking that maybe most adults don't know that they should know? And I hear a lot of great answers. And one answer that when the kid said it in class, the entire room was shaking their head like, "Yup." It's our generation turns to these kids and they say, "Do great in school, study hard, because you know what? You're going to be the generation to save the world." And these kids are like, "Yo, I'm a 12-year-old and you're trying to put your problems, you've created this mess of this world and you're already telling me I'm going to have to be the one to fix it." And in real time, they just smile and nod, but deep down inside, there's a little bit of resentment there of our generation messing the world up and handing it to them, saying, "Cool, and you're going to be the one to fix it. You got this." These are the types of subtle insights that are ubiquitous to their generation, but that maybe another generation doesn't totally have insight to or pay attention to. And it was the reason why we wanted to design this program from the inside out, partnering with local teens through the pandemic from the jump. That way, every step of the way is guided and informed by their generation's vernacular and native sense of perspective of how they see the world.
Wow. So, where can the listeners get this book that is it you who wrote the book or you said it was
Yes.
collaboration? Okay. So
Well,
tell
so I wrote it along with a dozen other community members and a bunch of the students and their anecdotes and their quotes. And so it was a labor of love as a community effort. It is the fundamental life tools. As of now, it's available on Amazon. And I think we can make sure to get you to the link so you have it as well.
yeah, sounds good. So where can the listeners get or where can the listeners connect with you or the organization?
Sure, sure.
What services do you offer? Do you have everything on your website, your social media platforms?
Thank you for asking. So, the name of our 501(c)(3) nonprofit is Indivisible Arts. Indivisible as in united and cannot be divided. It's the division sign with an X through it that one of our 7-year-olds actually drew. And so then that became our logo. And so if one goes to indivisiblearts.org, they'll be able to find out more about our organization and how we're impacting youth lives through creativity, consciousness, and connection. Right now, we're based in Southern California, and our program, reaches all throughout South Bay and LA County, reaching hundreds and thousands of youth, partnering with a handful of schools and amazing other organizations, nonprofits that help support youth who need it the most. And we've just launched a new platform that was created by these teens this summer called streamofconsciousness.life. And what streamofconsciousness.life is, imagine the Khan Academy, but instead of teaching, school curriculum, it's teaching mental and emotional health tools. These tools, but it's being taught by other teens in the format of teen is shooting a video. They say, "Hi, my name is this, and I'm going to talk about how I overcame bullying in school. I'm going to talk about how I use the tools of awareness and acceptance and forgiveness in order to do it. This is what it was like before. This is how I use the tool. This is what it's like now." And using that format of speaking about their own experience, strength, and hope, where we're sharing this toolkit for living with any teen or anyone who's struggling. And the vision is for us to reach an amassment of videos, an amassed collection of videos, so that any kid anywhere who's struggling can go to this site for free and type in college application stress or math anxiety, and all of a sudden have a couple dozen videos pull up from other kids their age that are talking about how they successfully and effectively use specific tools to be able to overcome that situation. So it's peers teaching each other with tools that they know work. In ancient Sanskrit, there's a word kavi. And what kavi is the sound in someone's voice when they're speaking from experience. There's a sense of truth to it because you know it's lived experience. And when these teens are talking to each other about how they overcame this or the other through these tools, it has a resonance to it that can't be fabricated. And that authenticity, I think, is absolutely critical in getting the buy-in from the younger generation or from anyone, but particularly the younger generation. They have a BS-ometer, let's just say. And when they hear adults talking adult speak, they can be pretty quick to not feel in alignment or resonant with it. But if we come in through the DNA of their generation. And what I mean by that is everything we're doing is wrapped in the creativity and art of their generation. So if you go to that website, you'll see it's designed by them. All of the stuff we have is designed by them. Their artwork is the expressive DNA of their generation. And that is the seed by which we're containing these tools of consciousness so that it can spread through creativity and art. That way it's resonant and authentic to their generation because it's being taught by them.
So, do you also have a session for adults, like people in their 30s and their 40s and their 60s, or is it only the youth that you're targeting?
So adults are next,
Okay.
with the youth first.
Mhm.
Isn't we know these tools work. We know this process works. Um, and so now it's how can we begin serving people and helping people. And what we realize, particularly if we're teaching awareness, a la Eckhart Tolle, to be the aware observer of my thoughts. My thoughts are like programs. I am cold. Oh, I guess I'm cold. And I don't have to agree with my brain says. My brain can say, I am cold. And I'll say, oh boy, my brain's doing the cold thing. I'm starting to shiver. My new thought form is, ooh, I need to stay warm. That's a much more helpful program than I am cold. What we have found is with teens and Gen Z, we're really focusing on like ages 9 through 27 right now, is that there isn't as much unwiring to do. There isn't as much deprogramming. There isn't as much junk and clutter to sift through so that they're able to effectively take in these tools just a little bit easier. So there isn't that resistance because they don't have 3 decades. I remember the first time I really understood the whole I'm the observer of my thoughts and not my thoughts. I was 35 years old. And I was like, wait a minute. This whole time, I mean, it makes sense. And it makes sense why I was struggling with my mental health because I was fighting with myself and identifying with both sides rather than being the aware observer watching both sides and being able to make a decision from beyond them, right? And not having to do the decades of unwiring makes it so that boy these youth are pretty quick to pick up these tools. It's pretty impressive. And the people, and if you're ever in LA County, you're ever on the West Coast, please come visit because I'd love to host you. Our creative laboratory is called Resin in Hermosa Beach. And I hear the same thing over and over again from adults. And it's this. Oh my gosh, that just gave me so much hope. They come and they watch a class and they listen to these kids talk like they're little 10-year-old Jack Cornfields or 10-year-old Joe Dispenzas. And it shows that these seemingly complex but simple concepts that are deep and fundamentally paradigm shifting can be totally understood by kids if we give them a chance and we give it a shot and we change the languaging a little bit so that it's more available to them and more resonant to them. And we're watching it work just so beautifully. I don't want to say so easily, but so easily, so swimmingly that a lot of the adults that come in and observe a class, they get overjoyed with hope, and it's a really beautiful thing to be part of.
Wow.
So
Excellent.
adults are next. The long way to say adults are next. And we do
Yeah.
have something for adults, which is called wisdom seekers.
Okay.
And it's for those that um, uh, want to come share in circle with other conscious, heart-centered beings. It's at 6:45 in the morning Pacific time, so 9:45 Eastern, and it's just a small circle on Zoom. That's part of one of the ways that we support adults right now. Um, and if a person goes to raphaelmcmaster.com, they can find more on how to become part of Wisdom Seekers.
So, Raphael, if you have any last words for the listeners, do you have any last words for the listeners about emotional resilience?
Sure, emotional resilience. So, what I would say about emotional resilience is there really are, I want to say, two types of emotions that overcome a person. One is the type of emotion where its visual nature is unavoidable for a second. Like that very first moment when there was a traffic accident and it's frustrating or something, that very first visible reaction moment. Or if a person's gone through trauma and their body is speaking to them on a level that isn't necessarily like conscious, right? And so I'm going to take those emotions and kind of put them over here. And then we're going to take all the other emotions, which for the most part stem from a person thinking about stuff. When one of my team workers takes a mental health day, or I'm overwhelmed, it shows up in I'm having a panic attack, anxiety, right? Come talk. Come, let's talk. What's on your mind? What are you thinking about? And sure enough, if the stuff we're thinking about are reframed as programs by which are creating the emotions, attitudes, and energy, a lot of times it makes sense. Like, well, it would make sense you feel all this anxiety because you're over here ruminating in a circle, obsessing about this thing over and over again. And so I do find that being the aware observer of our thoughts and getting underneath there and looking at what it is that's creating the emotional disturbance, and then having the self accountability to change those tapes or to clean our side of the street. I had a student where someone had hurt them emotionally, and so they forgave them, and they said, I've been doing using the forgiveness tool, but like I still keep obsessing about this thing. I'm still resentful towards this person. How do you get rid of that? I said, well, maybe there's a chance that stuck energy is you're not clear with yourself. Was there something that you did in that situation that maybe you need to be held accountable for, even if it's just accountable to yourself and then forgiving yourself, right? So sometimes if I'm having a hard time getting rid of a certain emotion, my emotions have magnets. I get rid of them and they come and they stick back to me. They're like Velcro. Then sometimes self accountability done with tenderness and like a sense of self compassion and softness oftentimes can uncover some things that maybe I wasn't seeing before in a way that allows me to get past some stuck emotions.
It's a lot to unpack and a lot to comprehend, especially if a young person is listening to, but they can always get in contact with you. So, Raphael, thank you for being on Beauty of Colors podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me today.
You're welcome.